Hi, you're here. Okay, let's move on to the snare. So as for snare, I used a close mic, overhead mic, and room mic, all of them. So then as for snare, close mic, and room mic, I used one-shot samples from Audiform Audio, I think, from Bujurta's engineer, I think. So he's fucking great. I love his mixes. Yeah, anyway, so I used his one-shot samples, which is free, of course. Then, so let's move on to the snare close mic and let's listen to that. Okay, how much did I blend? So let's listen to that and compare them. Almost one-shot sample is dominant, I think. But okay, as I said in the previous video of kick drum, so the blending the actual snare and the drum is really makes the drum cohesive. So that's why I used the actual drum sound. So in this case, actual drum is SSD 5.5. Okay, then let's compare to let's listen to the actual snare sound. Like this. Okay, let's listen to the without and with actual snare sound. It is too little to tell the difference, I guess. So it's too hard. So okay, so let's listen to that mute and unmute one. Okay, so let's move on to the room sound. So then room, sorry, okay, before we go to room sound, I have to talk about overhead sound. Overhead mic is from this snare. It's not this one, this snare. Then so the reason why I used an overhead mic is to make the snare more wide. So by using using snare close mic and room mics makes the drums really wide. However, for me, it's not great enough. So I don't really like kind of pointy snare. You know what I mean? So kind of when I listen to metal, the snare is almost center and then it's kind of pointy, too pointy to listen to. So I don't really like it. I want to feel more roomy sounding snare or snare drum sound, snare overhead mic. So that's why I use overhead mics to blend room sound or kind of stereo widened snare sound. So that's why I use overhead mic. But so if you like more pointy sounding snare, you don't have to use overhead mics. So this is my preference. So depending on your preference, so you should judge if you use overhead mics or not. So yeah, depending on your preference. Anyway, then let's move on to the kick snare drum room mic. Then this one and this one. So I blend actual and sample snare room mic sound. So sample room snare sound is really explosive, but the actual snare one is really I feel the vibe of the room itself. So then I blend them. So this is really great. So okay, so let's listen to the without and with. Okay, without a one-shot sample. Where is that? Yes, this. Okay, let's listen to the without one-shot sample. Huge difference. Then, okay, let's. Where is that? Yes, this is. Okay, so let's compare it with that and with actual snare room sound. By using only one-shot snare, it's kind of too explosive. So and too, as I said earlier, it's too isolated and too. How should I say? It's too it's kind of too deliberate. I don't know this description is right or not. However, okay, so let's move on to the actual processing. So I always start processing with applying in EQ. So then I used also always an equalizer and sounds like this. Okay, let me talk about each equalizer or band, each band. So I hear some fizziness on around 10k hertz. Then I used a low pass filter to get rid of fizziness. Sounds like this. And also I always use high pass filter to get rid of excess low end, which is almost inaudible, I think, for example. To be honest with you, I can't tell the difference between applied one and not applied one. However, so as you can see that this analyzer, I think, so the result is completely different. So by using this high-pass filter, I managed to cut inaudible low end, which means that I can get more headroom on this track. This is a really great technique. So if you don't hear any, if you cannot hear the low end of the track which you are dealing with, so please use a high-pass filter to get rid of excess low end. So by using this technique, as I said earlier, you can get more headroom. Having tons of headroom makes you kind of very good engineer. I don't know, but so makes you more comfortable to when you are mixing music, because so as I said in the previous video, I don't really like check if the checking the master bus and then so if the master bus is clipping or not, or if the track which I am dealing with is clipping or not. So when you are mixing, or when I am mixing, I want to focus on what I am dealing with. So I don't want to focus on other things. So I don't want to be bothered by such a kind of boring thing. So then that's why I use this technique. So yeah, please use that. You should use high pass filter to get rid of excess low end, which is inaudible. This is a great technique, I think. Then, okay, let's move on to the next band. So I hear the paper E sound, then I apply this 946 Hertz and minus 8 dB. This sounds like this. Probably too much, I think, but so if I turn up this band, sounds like this. Okay, so minus 3.76 dB one and minus 8.56 dB one. So I think minus 3 dB one has more punchy sound, but I hear I still hear a paper E sound, which is annoying at least for me. Then I applied this match cut on this band. So actually, this is a real. It does really depend on your preference. So if you like more punchy sound, then you should cut around -4 dB. But I don't. Yeah, I don't care. I think so. Then that's why I applied this much. Anyway, then let's move on to this frequency. What is it? Okay, let's listen to that. So by using this band, I got rid of some ringy low end, I think. So okay, let's listen to it by using this kind of ridiculous gain, using this ridiculous gain. Yes, this ish sound. So this is really annoying, but probably I think the more ringy sound is higher is in higher range, I think, around. Yes, here. Yeah, this range has super ringy snare sound. So okay, let's cut it out. So do you like this one? Or this one? So actually I like this one, but if you don't really like ringy snare, you should go with this technique, I think, or this band, I think. So, but I don't hate ringy snare. Actually, so I don't think this snare is ringy. So then I didn't apply tons of cut around this area. So, but if you don't really like ringy snare, you should cut a big amount of cut, I think. Yeah. Then okay, let's listen to with again. Huge difference. Okay, the next one is Compressor. Okay, so then without. Okay, so I love punchy snare. So then I always, when I use compressor, I always apply compressor around at -4 to 6 dB gain reduction. Okay, let's check it out. How much did I apply? -5.33. So yeah, I always apply this amount of gain compressor onto snare, because so for example, if I turn down the threshold, it's going to be super too much, I think. Too punchy or too clicky, I think. Yeah, so I don't really like it. So then I apply compressor at -6 or 5 dB gain reduction, and also I set attack 50 at 50 milliseconds. So okay, let's compare it to 0 milliseconds to around 5 milliseconds. Okay. Around 10 milliseconds, it's going to be proper attack. We can get proper attack. However, yes, around 10 milliseconds, we can get the proper attack. However, I don't hear a rich sustain of the snare or rich decay of the snare. Sorry, I don't know which is which. Sorry, I forgot. Sorry, but so because of that reason, I applied attack slower, so around 30 milliseconds. 10 milliseconds is too much. 30 milliseconds is great, and also, yeah, 50 is great for me. So 30 milliseconds is also great. However, I don't hear rich decay and sustain. So then I applied it 50 milliseconds out. Probably you guys have used other compressors such as kind of analog modeling compressor or something. Analog emulation compressor tend to have kind of preset attack like 1 milliseconds, 10 milliseconds, 30 milliseconds, 100 milliseconds, and so on. So that's why I use and that's why I set this attack 50 milliseconds, because 50 milliseconds are not kind of common, but so around 30 to 100 milliseconds is kind of slower attack range. So then I wanted use this compressor with slower attack to compress this snare. So that's why I applied this attack at 50 milliseconds. If you are not comfortable with using compressor, so you should use analog emulation compressors. Actually, so there are tons of free analog emulation compressor out there on internet. So if you haven't used these types of compressors, so you should use, and then actually it makes you really kind of comfortable with mixing, especially compressor. So using compressor is really tough. So it's hard to learn how to use. Actually, it took around 10 years to learn how to use compressor for me. So, but once you get comfortable with how to use compressors, your mixes are going to be super great. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Next one is transient processor. Yes, transient processor or transient shaper or something. Then sounds like this. Yeah, huge difference. So I wanted the snare to have more attack. So in the compressor stage, I said the attack was too much. However, when I use compressor to get a punchy attack, the compressor made the snare kind of less sustain, get the snare less sustain. That's why I didn't apply tons of compression onto snare. However, I wanted the snare to have more attack, so then that's why I use this transient processor. Okay, let's listen to that again. Actually, so having the snare tons of attack is really tough job. So, but this makes the job really easy. So then, if you haven't used this type of transient shaper or transient processors in your life, please use it. It's fucking easy. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the next one, Saturator. So reason why I use this saturator is, okay, let's listen to that, and then so let me talk about that. Reason why I use this saturator is because so I wanted the snare to be clipped. But basically, in audio world, especially digital audio world, that digital clipping is an enemy for engineers, because yeah, as you guys know, digital clipping is fucking annoying. However, I wanted the snare to be clipped to get more punchy sound. So for example, if you have you ever listened to kind of dubstep snares? The dubstep snares are almost or always clipping, but they are so attack. They have tons of attack and they are so cool. So I wanted to imitate that snare in this song. Then so I used this saturator to clip the snare. So yeah, sometimes, or basically, as I said earlier, basically clipping is an enemy, but sometimes the clipping is going to be our ally, I think. So then, yeah, so that's why I use this saturator, and literally I wanted the saturation on the snare. Yeah, that's why I use this saturator. Okay, let's move on to the last one. The last one is clipper, as always. Then so, okay, let's listen to that. Reason why I use this clipper is that to clip the peak of the snare out, and also to get the saturation, and also please look this mirror. Okay, when I turn on the clipper, the meter of the peak is not going to be changed. So for example, yes, it hasn't almost changed. It's however, so for us, it's when I turn on this clipper, it's louder. Yes, it's really louder. But the meter-wise, it's not louder because of that loudness, I think. So that's why I use a clipper onto a snare close mic. So using clipper on snare close mic is really great technique for me, because so in metal, so basically the most loud drum is snare drum, I think. Yeah, then so but in order to get that loud snare, so we have to turn up the volume or turn up the fader of the snare. However, when I turn up the volume of the snare is going to reach the clipping area, then it's going to be clipped, then it makes noises. It's so annoying. Then so I always use clipper to get clip this peak out, and also I want to get louder snare. So using clipper is really great technique for me. Yeah, so if you haven't used this technique, yeah, please use it. Yeah. Then okay, so before we go into snare overhead mic, let's listen to that snare close mic without and with processing. Yeah, huge difference. Okay, let's move on to the snare overhead mic. As for overhead mics, I use the same setting from snare close mic, because as I said in the previous video of kick drum room mic, room mic, yeah, anyway. So I don't want to deal with a phase issue. So that's why I use the same equalizer or same equalizer setting onto a snare drum overhead mic. Then sounds like this. Yeah, then so I always copy the setting from the snare drum close mic. Then sounds like this. Yes, I always copy, which means that so sometimes it doesn't work, then so it doesn't have any gain reduction, which means I don't have to use it. Okay, then snare. Next one is transient shaper. Yeah, of course it does work. Yeah, then it does a huge work, I think. So then I use this one. Then next one is saturator to get punchy sound. sounds like this. Yeah, huge difference. Then last one is Clipper. Yeah, to get the volume up, to make the volume up. For example, super punchy. I love it. Then, okay, let's listen to the before and after. Okay, then so let's listen to this snare close mic and overhead mic at the same time. Yeah, so snare overhead mics makes the snare more natural or kind of not too isolated. So I always say when I use sample, one-shot sample, I say that it's isolated. But in order not to be isolated, so I use overhead mic and room mic, and then so. And also, that snare overhead mic has kind of the characteristics of the snare itself. So that's why I use overhead mic of the snare onto to mix metal drum sound, snare sound. So yeah, sometimes so kind of these days. So we tend to mix metal drums too robotic or kind of. How should I say? It's too much, I think. So that's why I use this snare overhead mics to make it more natural. As I said in the previous video, snare drum solo overhead mic is unnatural at all, and it's not natural at all. So then, this technique is not natural. However, this technique makes that drum sound natural. That's why I use this technique. Then next one is snare room mic. Yeah, sounds like this. Then I always start with snare drum equalizer. Okay, let's talk about one by one. Okay, so first one is low pass filter, sounds like this. To get rid of fizziness, and high pass filter to get rid of inaudible low end. Yeah. Then also, I hear some, although as always I say, I hear paper-y sound around here. Sorry, I forgot. Low pass filter and high pass filter, and okay, band 4 is around 1K. Then I hear some kong 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 sounding kind of ridiculous sound. So then I cut this range. Yeah, next one is compressor. However, please look at this attack. I set it 0 millisecond. Reason why is to get explosive sound. Yeah, the next one is Saturator to get the punchiness. Yeah, and also to clip the peak out, I used a clipper. Yeah, sounds like this. Okay, let's listen to that before and after. Yeah, it's a little bit too much in a vacuum. However, it's in the context, it's going to be almost inaudible because the wall of the guitars are super loud in the metal context. So then this amount of volume is going to be kind of erased, or it's going to be attenuated, or it's going to be kind of going to be in the behind of the mix itself, I think. So yeah. Then okay, let's listen to the snare, all of the snare at the same time, and then let's check the before and after. Okay, huge difference. Techniques I use in this video is really easy, really easy. So you can use this technique immediately on your DAW. So yeah, so as I always say, gear doesn't matter, but so fancy or expensive gear doesn't make you a good mixer. So actually, so fancy gear or expensive gear is a really easy to use, especially EQ and compressor. However, but free ones are nowadays really great. So if you don't have tons of money to mix your song, you don't have to be kind of you don't have to care about that such a boring thing. Yeah. So practice, practice, practice. Then you can be a great mixer, I think. Yeah. Okay, that's all. So let's move on to the terms.